Once known as Baltic gold, amber was so valuable that you could buy 2 healthy slaves with 1 small amber figurine. This abundant resource found in Northern Europe was so scarce and valuable in the Mediterranean that Rome started wars all across the whole continent for it. But why was it so valuable? Why did it lead to such immense growth? And why did entire nations go to war over it? To understand this, let's explore this golden path of history. Long before Marco Polo's famous journey, a different network was moving goods and ideas across continents. Imagine standing on the shores of the Baltic Sea in 1500 BCE. The beach is covered in chunks of what looks like golden stone, but it's not stone at all. It's amber, fossilized tree resin that's captivated people for thousands of years. This isn't just any old rock. It's a piece of prehistoric sunlight trapped in time. People have used amber in jewelry, medicine, and even as protection against evil spirits. Hold a piece up to the light, and you'll see why ancient civilizations thought it was solidified sunbeams. Here's the fascinating part. This Baltic amber was on the move. We're talking about a complex network of routes that transported amber across Europe for over 3,500 years. While the pharaohs were building pyramids in Egypt, European traders were already establishing these long-distance amber routes. And the reach of this amber network, it's more extensive than we once thought. Recent discoveries have changed our understanding of ancient trade. Chemical analysis of amber artifacts found in Iraq shows they came from the Baltic region. That's Baltic amber showing up in ancient Mesopotamia. The Amber Road stretched from the coastal areas of the North Sea and Baltic Sea through present-day Germany, Poland, Austria, Hungary, and Slovenia, finally reaching the Mediterranean. But it didn't stop there. The amber kept moving, reaching as far as Egypt and beyond. Now you might be wondering, where exactly did all this amber come from? And why was it so valuable that people would go to such lengths to trade it? Well, this fossilized tree resin, formed about 45 million years ago in vast coniferous forests, now lies in the largest known deposits along the coasts of Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. While common in the north, amber was rare and highly prized in the south. Baltic dwellers could casually pick up chunks of this golden material on the beach. But for ancient Egyptians or Greeks, it was legendary stuff. As trade grew, people started mining amber, digging into coastal cliffs and even dredging it from the seabed. Amber wasn't just a pretty trinket for Baltic people. They used it for jewelry, intricate carvings, and art. Many believed it had protective and healing properties, using it in folk medicine and as a talisman against evil. Evidence of amber trading first appears around 3000 BCE. By 1500 BCE, organized trade routes connected northern Europe with Mediterranean markets. When the Romans got involved, the trade really took off. Here's where it gets wild. Chemical analysis has shown that much of the amber found in ancient Mediterranean sites, including pieces in Tutankhamun's tomb, originated from the Baltic region. That's right. This fossilized tree resin traveled thousands of miles to be buried with one of history's most famous pharaohs. How did this Baltic gold make its way to ancient Egypt? It's a tale of adventure, commerce, and cultural exchange spanning an entire continent. The journey of amber from the chilly Baltic shores to the scorching deserts of Egypt reveals a complex network of trade and cultural interactions that shaped ancient civilizations. The Amber Road was a complex network of routes stretching across Europe, connecting the Baltic Sea in the north to Italy and beyond in the south. It wasn't a single, well-defined path, but rather a series of interconnected routes that traders used to transport amber and other valuable goods. These routes faced numerous challenges. Traders had to cross rivers, climb mountains, and traverse forests. And let's not forget about the bandits. They were a constant threat. Having multiple routes wasn't just about convenience. It was a matter of survival. Each stop along these routes became a cultural melting pot. Baltic traders and Roman merchants exchanged goods, ideas, languages, and customs. Places like Aquileia in Italy and Carnuntum a Roman city at the crossroads of several important trade routes, became major hubs. These weren't simple marketplaces. They were the ancient world's bustling centers of commerce and cultural exchange. The routes often followed natural features, like rivers and mountain passes. The Romans recognized their importance and built military fortifications to protect them. Imagine Roman legions guarding amber shipments. That's how valuable this trade was. But amber wasn't the only treasure moving along these ancient highways. Traders from the north carried animal skins, thick furs, honey, and beeswax. From the south came Roman glass, brass, gold, and other rare metals. The Amber Road also facilitated the spread of ideas, art styles, and religious practices across the continent. So when you look at a piece of amber, you're not just seeing a pretty golden stone. You're holding a fragment of an ancient trade network that shaped cultures, economies, and the course of history. Amber had some surprising uses too, but that's a story for another time. Amber's uses in ancient times went far beyond decoration, venturing into realms that might make modern science raise an eyebrow. The Greeks believed amber could help with breathing problems and even fix digestion. Cultures all over the ancient world attributed some pretty wild powers to this golden substance. Some thought it could ward off evil spirits, while others burned it as incense in religious ceremonies, believing it could purify spaces and connect the physical world with the divine. These beliefs weren't just pulled out of thin air. Amber has some unique properties that must have seemed magical in a world without modern science. It's warm to the touch and becomes electrically charged when rubbed. And let's not forget its beauty. That rich golden color probably didn't hurt its reputation as a cure-all. Here's where it gets really interesting. Modern science has actually found some truth in these ancient beliefs. Recent studies have shown that amber possesses antibacterial properties. It can actually inhibit the growth of certain bacteria. So when ancient healers were using amber to treat infections, they might have been onto something. This discovery has led to a resurgence of interest in amber's medicinal properties. Some modern traditional medicine practitioners still use amber in various forms, including oils and powders. They claim it can help with everything from pain relief to reducing inflammation. Now, a lot more research is needed before we can draw any solid conclusions. But it's fascinating to think that our ancestors might have stumbled onto something that modern science is only now beginning to understand. So when you look at a piece of amber, remember, you're looking at something that was once believed to heal the sick, ward off evil, and connect people to the divine. And who knows, maybe there are still secrets locked away in that golden resin, waiting for science to uncover them. With all these amazing properties, real and imagined, amber must have been worth a fortune in the ancient world. But just how valuable was it? Well, that's a story that might surprise you even more than amber's supposed healing powers. Let's find out just how much our ancestors were willing to pay for this golden miracle. Amber was a substance of incredible value in ancient Rome, commanding prices that might shock us today. A small amber figurine could cost more than a healthy slave, highlighting the stark differences between ancient economies and our own. The high value of amber stemmed from its rarity in the Mediterranean and the perilous journey it had to make from the Baltic to Rome. Merchants risked their lives transporting this precious cargo across thousands of miles of hostile terrain, expecting a substantial return on their investment. Amber's price fluctuated based on availability and demand. During certain periods, it could rival gold in value in some markets. Its unique properties, beauty, supposed magical and medicinal qualities all contributed to its high price tag. The value of amber varied greatly across different regions. In the Baltic, where it was abundant, amber was still valuable, but not to the same degree as in Rome or Egypt. This regional variation in value mirrors how we view certain precious commodities today. The amber trade played a crucial role in the rise of several ancient civilizations, particularly in the Baltic region. It was a major economic driver for local communities and traders, allowing them to accumulate wealth and power. The Romans established trade routes protected by military fortifications to control this valuable resource. This control over the amber trade translated into political power and influence. The wealth generated from amber allowed certain groups, particularly the elite in Roman society, to exert significant control over economic and political spheres. But where there's money to be made, conflict often follows. The desire to control this valuable resource led to intense rivalries and conflicts. The amber trade wasn't just about luxury goods. It was about power, wealth, and the shaping of ancient economies. Imagine a world where wars were fought over tree sap. Sounds crazy, right? But in ancient times, amber, fossilized tree resin, was a hugely valuable commodity. It sparked conflicts that shaped empires and redrew maps. The Baltic region was rich in amber deposits, and the Mediterranean world craved this golden treasure. Between them lay vast territories and ambitious powers, all eyeing the lucrative amber trade. The Romans, ever hungry for new resources, set their sights on controlling the amber routes. But they weren't alone in this quest. Germanic tribes along these routes recognized the potential wealth and power amber could bring. They weren't about to let Rome take over without a fight. The resulting conflicts had far-reaching consequences, influencing alliances and even the expansion of empires. Now, was amber really worth going to war over? Well, it was more like a key ingredient in a complex political recipe. Controlling the amber trade meant controlling a major source of wealth and influence. For the Romans, that was reason enough to march their legions north. As they pushed into new territories, the Romans established military fortifications along the Amber Road. These weren't simple trading posts. They were full-fledged fortresses designed to protect merchants and keep the precious resin flowing south. The Roman campaigns weren't just about expanding the empire, they were laser-focused on gaining direct control over amber sources. These conflicts had a huge impact on the amber trade itself. Sometimes they disrupted supply lines, causing shortages and driving prices even higher. Other times, they opened up new routes and sources. The flow of amber ebbed and surged with the tides of war, shaping economies and cultures in its wake. But the story of amber doesn't end on European battlefields. This golden resin was quietly making its way even further afield, connecting cultures that had never even heard of each other. How far did amber's influence reach? The answer might surprise you and change how you see the ancient world. Baltic amber in ancient Iraq. Yeah, you read that right. Recent discoveries are shaking up our understanding of ancient trade networks. We're talking about finds that are making archaeologists rethink the entire map of early commerce. A couple of amber beads, about 3,800 years old, turned up near the Tigris River in Iraq. Chemical analysis showed these weren't just any old amber beads. They came from the Baltic region, thousands of miles away. This is like finding a McDonald's wrapper on Mars. This discovery is changing our whole understanding of how connected the ancient world really was. It suggests a regular, established trade network spanning continents. Ideas, technologies, and cultures were zooming across vast distances, influencing civilizations that had never even met face to face. Researchers use some pretty fancy techniques to analyze the chemical makeup of amber. It's like amber has a fingerprint, and these scientists are the detectives tracing it back to its source. This discovery is opening up a whole new set of questions. If Baltic amber made it to ancient Iraq, what else was moving along these trade routes? Were there other luxury goods making similar journeys? And how far did these networks really extend? These amber beads might just be the tip of the iceberg. Experts think there could be more evidence out there, waiting to be uncovered. We might be on the verge of discovering connections between ancient civilizations that we never even imagined existed. It looks like the ancient world was a lot more interconnected than we thought. We're talking about trade networks that spanned from northern Europe to the Middle East, and possibly even further. These weren't just routes for moving goods. They were highways for the exchange of ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. The implications are huge. Civilizations we thought were isolated were actually part of a global network. Ideas and innovations were spreading, evolving, and shaping cultures across continents. But here's a question that's got archaeologists scratching their heads. How did ancient traders navigate these vast networks? We're talking about journeys spanning thousands of miles, crossing all kinds of terrain. No jeeps, no maps, no road signs. So how did they do it? Well, that's a story that might just blow your mind. Let's find out. What if ancient traders navigated vast deserts and treacherous mountain passes using only the stars and their wits? It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what they did, using techniques that would make modern jeeps look basic. Imagine you're an ancient trader leading a caravan of camels loaded with precious amber across the Sahara. No maps, no compasses, just you and endless sand dunes. How do you find your way? These ancient navigators had some clever tricks. The stars were crucial for long-distance navigation. Traders used the North Star and other constellations to determine their direction and stay on course. But they also paid close attention to what was right under their feet. The patterns of sand dunes, the shape of rock formations, even the scent of vegetation. All these were vital clues for experienced guides. They could read the landscape like we read street signs, using their deep knowledge of the terrain to navigate through seemingly featureless deserts. Here's where it gets really interesting. Much of this navigational knowledge wasn't written down. Instead, it was passed down through oral traditions. Berber and Tuareg guides used stories and songs to convey complex information about routes, oases, and desert hazards. Imagine memorizing an entire jeep's database. That's basically what these guides did. The scale of these journeys was massive. Some caravans consisted of up to 12,000 camels, traveling for 40 to 60 days across the Sahara. That's a lot of camels and a lot of time in a very hostile environment. Camels were essential for these long-distance trade routes. Their ability to travel for days without water made them ideal for crossing vast, arid regions. But even with camels, the journey was far from easy. Traders faced numerous dangers, from bandits and venomous snakes to sandstorms and the relentless desert itself. The most crucial element in these epic journeys was the local guides. These experts knew the safest routes, the location of hidden oases, and how to navigate the complex tribal politics of the regions they passed through. So next time you use your phone's Jeep to find a coffee shop, think about those ancient traders. They crossed continents with nothing but their knowledge, courage, and a lot of camels. It's amazing that these trade routes flourished for thousands of years. But the Amber Road was more than just a trade route. It was a conduit for ideas, spreading from culture to culture and changing the world in ways we're still discovering today. How did this exchange of ideas shape our world? Well, that's a story that might surprise you. Amber wasn't just a pretty stone. It was a key player in a vast network that connected cultures and spread ideas across continents. The Amber Road acted as a conduit for cultural exchange on a scale we're only now beginning to grasp. Before these trade routes, many cultures existed in relative isolation. But as amber flowed from the Baltic to the Mediterranean, it carried more than just golden nuggets. Ideas, beliefs, and innovations hitched a ride along with the precious resin. Religious concepts and technological advancements traveled alongside the amber. Ancient Baltic pagan beliefs mingled with Mediterranean mythologies, while some researchers suggest early Christian ideas may have spread north along these trade routes. At the same time, advanced techniques for working with amber spread from the Baltic to other regions, influencing artisans in places like Rome and Greece. Here's a mind-bending example. Amber artifacts found in ancient Mediterranean sites, including some in Tutankhamun's tomb, have been traced back to the Baltic region. This shows how far-reaching the exchange of goods and artistic styles really was. The cultural mixing wasn't one way either. As Baltic amber made its way south, Mediterranean influences traveled north. The result, a fascinating fusion of styles and techniques that we can still see in ancient artifacts today. These exchanges laid the groundwork for what we now call Western civilization. Ideas that we might think of as purely Greek or Roman often had roots in distant cultures, traveling along trade routes like the Amber Road. The Amber Road even played a role in spreading early Christianity. As traders moved along these routes, they carried not just amber, but also new religious ideas. Early Christian communities may have used these established trade networks to spread their message northward. It's wild to think that fossilized tree resin could have played a part in shaping religious beliefs that still influence millions of people today. But that's what trade does. It moves more than just goods. So when you look at a piece of amber, remember, you're holding a fragment of a network that once connected cultures, spread ideas, and shaped the world as we know it. But the Amber Road's influence couldn't last forever. Forces were at work that would eventually dim the glow of this golden highway. What could bring down such a vast and influential trade network? Well, that's a story of changing times and shifting powers. You might think a trade route that shaped civilizations would be invincible, but even golden roads can lose their shine. The Amber Road, once the king of ancient commerce, was about to face some serious competition. What could possibly dethrone amber from its lofty perch? Well, it turns out the very thing that made the Amber Road great also led to its downfall. The winds of change were blowing, and they carried the scent of something new and exciting. Let's set the scene. It's the late Middle Ages, and the Amber Road is still going strong. But there's a new player in town: maritime trade. Ships are getting bigger, navigation is improving, and suddenly sailing across the sea looks a lot more appealing than trekking across a continent. Think about it. Why spend months hauling amber over land when you could load up a ship and let the wind do the work? It's faster, safer, and you can carry way more cargo. By the 16th century, sea routes were leaving the old Amber Road in the dust. But it wasn't just about transportation. The world was changing, and amber was losing its appeal. New trade goods were stealing the spotlight. And what was the star of this new trading world? Spices. That's right. People were going crazy for cinnamon, pepper, and nutmeg. Amber. That's so last millennium. Now you might be wondering what happened to all those amber traders. Well, they didn't vanish overnight. The last major amber trading expeditions happened in the late medieval period. But by the 15th century, the amber trade had dropped dramatically. The political landscape was shifting too. The regions around the Baltic Sea were becoming unstable, making the old trade routes more dangerous. The Roman Empire, once the biggest customer for amber, was long gone. The Byzantine Empire that followed. They were more interested in sea trade. Here's the real kicker. New technology was making sea travel easier than ever. The invention of the magnetic compass meant ships could navigate more reliably. Suddenly, those land-based amber routes were looking pretty old-fashioned. By the end of the 14th century, the Amber Road was a shadow of its former self. Traders were choosing maritime routes, leaving the old paths to gather dust. The whole economic focus of Europe was shifting towards the sea and the new empires that controlled it. So there you have it. The mighty Amber Road, brought low by changing tastes, new technology, and the allure of the open sea. But don't shed a tear for amber just yet. Its story didn't end with the decline of its famous trade route. In fact, you could say it was just entering a new chapter. Want to know what happened next? Well, amber's story is far from over. This ancient resin continues to fascinate scientists and archaeologists, offering insights into our past and potential clues for our future. Let's explore how this fossilized tree sap is still making waves in the modern world. Amber isn't just a museum relic. There's an active industry around it, with places like Kaliningrad, Russia, still mining amber on an industrial scale. Scientists are using it to study ancient ecosystems and insect evolution, while archaeologists uncover new artifacts that reshape our understanding of ancient trade. These discoveries are like pieces of a giant puzzle, mapping out complex networks that connected our ancestors. Using cutting-edge technology, we're studying trade routes from thousands of years ago. It's revealing how interconnected the ancient world really was. Turns out, globalization has deep roots. But what can old trade routes teach us? A lot, actually. The Amber Road and other ancient networks show how ideas and technologies spread in the past. We're learning how cultures influenced each other and how innovations traveled. It's giving us a glimpse into the foundations of our modern world. And we might be just scratching the surface. Experts think there could be more amber artifacts out there waiting to be found. Who knows what secrets they might hold? We could uncover evidence of even more extensive trade routes or new details about ancient manufacturing techniques. This isn't just about history. Studying these ancient trade networks helps us understand our present and possibly predict our future. It's like having a roadmap of human commerce stretching back millennia, offering insights into modern economic systems. So when you see a piece of amber, remember, it's a key to understanding our past, present, and maybe even our future. But the Amber Road might have one more surprise in store, because this ancient trade route could be making a comeback in a way that would astonish those ancient traders. Want to know how? Well, that's where our story comes full circle, from ancient paths to modern highways. Plans are underway to resurrect one of history's most influential trade routes. The Amber Road is becoming a blueprint for the future, with implications bigger than you might think. Those ancient traders were onto something. The routes they carved out across Europe are still some of the most efficient ways to move goods and people. Modern planners are taking notice, designing new transportation corridors that follow similar paths. The Baltic-Adriatic corridor, a massive infrastructure project, links the same regions as the ancient route. It's like history is repeating itself, but with high-speed trains and modern highways instead of horse-drawn carts. These new routes are shaping how modern Europeans see themselves. Countries along the old path are rediscovering their shared history, using it to build new economic and cultural ties. It's like they're reaching back through time, reconnecting threads that were severed centuries ago. This could reshape Europe's economic landscape, shifting the balance of power and opening up new opportunities. But there's more to it than just economics. These corridors could spark a new era of cultural exchange and innovation, following the path laid down by those ancient amber traders. Now there's something even bigger in the works. The Amber Highway, a modern superhighway connecting the Baltic and Adriatic seas, is a serious project with backing from multiple European countries. If it goes ahead, it could transform transport and trade across the continent. So what does all this mean? The story of the Amber Road isn't over. It's entering a new chapter. Those ancient paths are being reborn as modern highways of commerce and culture. It's a reminder that in the world of trade and human connection, everything old can become new again. Maybe centuries from now, people will look back at our Amber Highway the same way we look at the ancient route, as a vital link that shaped the course of history, connecting cultures and spreading ideas across a continent. The journey that started with a piece of golden resin is taking a new form for a new age. The Amber Road was more than an ancient trade route. It laid the foundation for our modern global economy. Those early traders, transporting fossilized tree sap across continents, set the stage for the interconnected world we inhabit today. Our current trade networks, spanning oceans and continents, evolved from those ancient amber paths. They carry more than just goods. Ideas, technologies, and cultures travel along these routes, echoing the exchanges of millennia past. What might be the trade routes of the future? Perhaps data highways connecting virtual realms, or interplanetary routes linking Earth to far-flung colonies. As humans expand their reach, trade will inevitably follow. Centuries from now, future civilizations might study the remnants of our trade networks, puzzling over their significance much as we do with the Amber Road.